Welcome to Glow Nutrition, where we take traditional down-home cooking methods and modernize them to merge healthy lifestyles with busy lives. I'm Jessica Idleman, and today we're making a bird 3 ways. We're going to take the entire chicken and we're going to make 25 plus meals for the weeks to come. Don't believe me? I'm going to show you how. We're first going to start with our basic roast chicken, a simple go-to recipe that requires very little effort and can give us at least 4 recipes for the week ahead. You can use this chicken meat for sandwiches, salads, soups, wraps, you name it. We're also going to use the bones from the leftover chicken to make bone broth, one of the most nutritious staples you can keep in your modern day kitchen, to make endless amounts of soups that can be ready in a matter of minutes. Finally, we're going to take the egg from the chicken, beautiful pasture-raised chicken eggs that we're going to make into egg muffins. We can freeze these, make them in bulk, change this recipe up a million different ways, and have easy breakfast or lunches on the go. So today we're going to start with our basic roast chicken recipe. I have here a pasture-raised chicken. Now it's really, really important to always procure your protein from local farmers who raise clean pasture-raised animals. And what does that mean? That means that this chicken walked around during its lifetime with the sun on its back and a free range of bugs and seeds and grasses to choose from. Whenever you choose a pasture-raised chicken, most especially, you're getting a much more nutritious bird, but you're also getting a tastier bird. When you buy your chicken whole or bone-in like this one, you are paying a lot less for it per pound. This chicken, whenever you buy it whole, is approximately $4 per pound. That's about the going rate for a pasture-raised chicken. When you decide to buy your chicken skinless and boneless, like say chicken breasts, you're spending as much as $8 a pound. Now, there are a lot of reasons besides the price to buy your chicken whole. One of them is because when you cook your chicken bone in or whole, it retains its moisture and therefore it's gonna have a lot more flavor. Plus, you have about 4 meals on this chicken. Approximately 2 meals for a family of 4, 4 meals for a family of 2. And finally, you have bones left over from this chicken. These bones are precious. Why? Because we use these bones to make a delicious and nutritious chicken stock, one of the most nutrient-dense staples you can have in your kitchen. We're gonna get to that a little bit later. But right now, we're going to go ahead and make our basic roast chicken. What I have here is a very old cast iron skillet. I've had this for maybe 15, 20 years. These things last forever. They're very easy to clean and they transfer from the oven to the stovetop beautifully. The easiest thing to do with a basic roast chicken is to preheat your oven to 350. So we're going to start by using some pink Himalayan sea salt. I always use pink Himalayan sea salt exclusively in my kitchen. This is a high mineral salt that is actually more mineral dense than your regular white sea salt, most especially your white iodized table salt. Plus, this pink Himalayan sea salt, because it's so mineral dense, really balances out that sodium level. It's a very salty salt, so you actually need less, and it makes that sodium just a little bit better balanced in the body. We're just gonna salt and pepper this bird. Make sure you salt your cavity of the bird, and you wanna preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Now, you can stop here after you salt and pepper this bird, but I'm gonna take it up one more notch, and I'm gonna stuff this bird with some aromatic and flavorful ingredients. I have quartered 1/2 of a lemon. I'm just gonna stick this into the cavity with a couple of cloves of smashed garlic, a bay leaf, and some celery and some carrot. This is organic celery and carrot. This is one of these 2 vegetables are 2 of the vegetables you always want to buy organic as much as possible. If you don't have enough room in your cavity, you can just place your vegetables under or around where the chicken is going to be resting in the oven. I'm also going to quarter 1 onion. And drop a couple of pieces in the cavity as well. I'm just gonna break my organic carrot in half. Stuff it in there. No need to peel or chop these vegetables. We're actually not gonna eat these vegetables. These are just for flavor. Get as much of these vegetables in the cavity as you can. And whatever's left, you can just put, like I said, under or around the chicken. Now, another trick to roasting a chicken well is to put it breast side down. Unlike popular belief of breast side up, the reason why we do this is because the breast meat happens to be the leanest, which means it's going to cook the fastest and therefore dry out. If we put it the chicken breast side down, that means that all of the juices that get released from the chicken during the cooking process percolate down through the breast, keeping it nice and juicy as well as flavorful. So I'm just gonna toss in the rest of my vegetables here, my bay leaf, and into this 350-degree oven it goes for about an hour and 15 minutes. We're gonna check it in an hour, see where it is. I'm gonna show you how to do that without a thermometer. Okay, now that our chicken is all done, we're just gonna let it rest for a little bit and we're gonna move on to the egg muffins. Now, this is one of my favorite recipes, go-to recipes, like I said earlier, because it's just perfect for making in bulk. You can freeze these ahead of time and you can pop these in the oven or even the microwave for just a couple of minutes and have really easy, quick, go-to breakfasts or lunches throughout the week. So we're going to start with a 12-cell muffin tin, a well-greased muffin tin with coconut oil. I use extra virgin coconut oil. You can also use unsalted grass-fed butter. The more you grease these, the better. It'll make for easier cleanup. And I really like coconut oil with this recipe because, believe it or not, coconut oil goes great with eggs. Over here, I have 2 cups of mixed vegetables. Today we're using chopped seeded tomato, chopped Tuscan, a dark green Tuscan kale, and about 2 tablespoons of red onion. I chose these vegetables today because these are what I got out of my garden. I'm gonna turn them out into a larger bowl, and using a spoon, I'm just gonna give them a nice mix. You can use any vegetables you would like. Zucchini, green onion, even a little bit of hard cheese. I would definitely recommend finding a hard raw cheese from grass-fed cows. That makes a lovely cheese that goes with eggs. It's a nice upgrade. And now that we have these well mixed, I'm just going to take them by the large spoonful and drop them in each muffin tin. We want these to be about 1/3 full, and we'll go back through and top them all off if we have any extra. 2 cups is that nice ratio for 12 muffins. So you can always use more or less depending on how much of these egg muffins you're making at a time. These make a great brunch recipe too, by the way. These vegetables smell really, really good. So fresh and summery. Now that we have our vegetables out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the eggs. I have a 11-cup standard food processor here and 12 eggs that came from, once again, pasture-raised local chickens. Different kind of chicken than the chicken that we just pulled out of the oven. Different chickens lay eggs than the kind of chickens that we eat. I get these eggs from, again, another local farm here in the St. Louis area. And the reason I'm such a stickler about my eggs is because of that pasture-raised factor I was talking about earlier. When chickens are pasture-raised, their eggs are gonna be much more nutrient dense. And as you can see here, the yolks are they're not only larger, they're a much darker, brighter yellow than your regular factory farmed eggs that you would get from the supermarket. Organic eggs, by the way, are not the same thing as free-range pasture-raised eggs. You definitely want to take your time finding a good egg vendor. It's totally worth it. Out of all the things to buy organic and bring home in your kitchen, or clean, spend a little bit extra money on, it would be pasture-raised eggs. We're using 12 for this recipe. A great ratio or way to think about this recipe is 1 egg per muffin tin. So 12 eggs, 2 cups of vegetables. I'm gonna add just 1 scant teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt to my eggs. And just a little bit of cayenne pepper. This is my great idea to add cayenne pepper. You don't have to add cayenne. I just like just a little bit of a kick to my eggs. Cayenne goes great with eggs. You don't have to use cayenne. You can also use black pepper. You could use no pepper. It's totally up to you. I'm going to process these eggs for about 30 seconds just to fluff them up and incorporate them with each other. And then we're going to pour them into the tins, and in the oven they go. Okay, it's been enough time. We have our eggs fully blended. And to this 2-cup measure that I had, I started with my vegetables in. I'm just gonna keep that around to make things really simple. I'm gonna pour my eggs back in here. The little pour spout is gonna make it much neater to pour into the muffin tins. And I'm just gonna start by covering the vegetables in each tin. I'm gonna have more than enough eggs here, but I like to keep things even. So I'll go back around after they've all gotten about 3/4 of the way full. Now it's okay to fill these a little higher than you would traditional muffin batter. These egg muffins will puff up like traditional muffins, and they'll also deflate like traditional muffins. These were rather large eggs. If you're using pasture-raised eggs, they typically tend to be smaller. These were unusually large, which isn't a bad thing. So we're just going to take these almost to the top here. And then into a 400-degree oven they go for just 10 to 15 minutes. Everybody's oven is a little bit different. My oven likes about 13 minutes for these eggs, but my last oven liked 12 minutes. So check your eggs after 10 minutes. You want a nice, slightly runny center in the center of your muffins. If you're planning on freezing these to reheat later, I would suggest cooking them for even less time and then reheating them for 3 to 4 minutes at 300 degrees after you pull them out of the freezer. So in these go. We're going to set our timer for 13 minutes. 13 minutes is just enough time to start on our chicken stock. So let's get to it. So we're back, and as you can see, I have taken our roast chicken. I have broken it down completely. I have stripped it of all of its meat, and I have separated the bones away from this meat. As you can see here, I have 2 substantially sized chicken breasts and about 2 cups of chopped dark meat on top of that. Now, this is enough chicken meat for at least 2 recipes, possibly 4, depending on how you want to split it up. I'm using these chicken breasts tonight for dinner for my husband and myself, and I'm going to put the other 2 cups of chicken meat in the refrigerator, and I'm just going to have them as a nice, easy staple ingredient that's ready to go throughout the week. Maybe salads, maybe wraps, maybe a sandwich or tacos even. You can also make this. You can also use this chicken meat for a casserole, and if you're not ready to use it, you can just throw it in a freezer bag in the freezer, and it's ready to go in a pinch whenever you need it in the future. So, like I said, I have taken the bones away, and this is going to be the basis for our chicken stock. Now, for those of you who don't know, all of the wonderful things you've ever heard about chicken stock are true. Yes, it's great for your immune system, but it's great for so much more than that. One of the best parts about chicken stock or bone broth from any animal, actually, is something called collagen, which comes from the fat as well as the bones, all parts of the chicken really. As we cook those bones in water slowly over several hours, things like the minerals like calcium come out into the water, amino acids, and yes, collagen. 70% of our skin is comprised of collagen, and collagen is one of those foundational nutrients in our body that builds strong hair, as well as nails, and even organ tissue, right? It's amazing for the skin and is a highly coveted supplement and staple ingredient that we can put in just about anything. Chicken stock is so versatile. You can make gravies, sauces, of course, soups in minutes. You can even just sip it like tea. That's what I do in the wintertime. So making chicken stock, one of the best things about chicken stock is how easy it is to make. It's very rustic, and it does take quite a bit of time, but not that much active time. Not that much active time at all. As you can see here, I have the same ingredients that I had earlier when we were roasting the chicken. These ingredients go great with chicken. We've got our classic mirepoix, carrot, celery, and onion. We also have garlic, bay leaf, a little bit of lemon, our pink Himalayan sea salt, and some fresh cracked black peppercorn. So I'm gonna start with a 9-quart stock pot. If you save all of your bones from multiple chickens over time, you can have lots of bones, which makes for a concentrated stock, and you can make lots of stock all at once. Then you can freeze it in 1-quart containers and just have an easy grab and go ingredient any day of the week, which is what I do. It comes in very, very handy. So to this recipe, we're going to add in the remaining chicken parts from the chicken we roasted earlier, all the bones, the skin, the tendons. And I have already boosted this stock pot with the bones from about 2 or 3 other chickens that I've been collecting for the last several months. We're going to take some carrots, just break them in half. No need to peel or cap them unless the cap happens to be moldy or rotting for some reason. For those of you who don't know, the peel on the carrot, in fact, the peel or the paper on anything in the allium family like onions or garlic, this is the most nutritious part of the vegetable. Not exactly good eats, so we get rid of that when we're actually eating it. But here we're just going to be using it for the purposes of aromatics as well as flavor. All of these things are going to be strained off later, and what's going to be left is the delicious liquid. I have a handful of smashed garlic, cloves of garlic, paper on. I've got 2 bay leaves. I've got 2 onions, paper on. The only reason you would like to peel your onions if perhaps you see dirt or mold underneath the external paper. I don't here, so I'm just going to throw all of that in. I'm going to break in half 2 to 3 stalks of celery, quarter a lemon, and then I'm going to add in just a small handful of black peppercorns, a small handful of pink salt, and that is it, except for 2 of my secret ingredients and a little bit of water. First secret ingredient is apple cider vinegar. Now, apple cider vinegar is used here in this process. This actually alkalizes the water a little bit and will help leach more calcium and other minerals from the bones during the cooking process. Not a huge deal if you forget to add this ingredient, but it definitely helps with getting a very gelatinous broth. And then finally, this is my own little secret ingredient. This is kombu. This is actually a version of kelp, or some of you might recognize as a sea vegetable. Kombu, I like kombu specifically because it comes in these huge pieces like this. And you know, the reason why I like to add this to my stock is because of, again, the mineral density. It's going to infuse our water with even more minerals. And sea vegetables in general, particularly kelp, has a high amount of iodine, something that we just don't get a lot of anymore in our modern day diet, particularly if we are inlanders, and I am. So I like to slip this in to just about everything. It's kind of like a bay leaf. If it doesn't disintegrate, You just strain it out or take it out at the end of the process. It also boosts flavor just by a little bit. So we're gonna stick that in there. And by the way, this is something that we can use in soaking liquid for our grains and beans. Actually definitely helps with the digestion as well as the gas that beans and grains are known for. So now that we have all of our ingredients in our large pot, the only thing that's left is some filtered water. We want to cover everything with about 2 inches of filtered water. Perfect. We're going to turn the heat on high. We want this to come to a boil, but we don't want it to stay to a boil. When it comes to a boil, I'll come back, turn it down to a simmer, and I'll tell you why. Okay, we're back, and our stock has reached a boil. I'm gonna take the lid off just to check it out. This is exactly where you want your stock to be. I'm gonna turn the heat down to all the way to low, and we're going to skim off the scum that you see that has floated to the surface. Now, this is exactly why you don't want to let your stock stay at a rolling boil for a long period of time. A lot of the impurities or the toxins in the animal, regardless of the animal, are typically fat soluble. And so as the animal cooks, these impurities get released and they float to the top, making them very easy to skim off. You want to use a flat spoon and a little bit of a junk bowl. You might have to do this a couple of times throughout the process, the cooking process. If the stock stays at a rolling boil, the impurities emulsify into the water, into the liquid, and therefore become very, very difficult to extract later. It's not that big of a deal, but it definitely makes your stock a little bit more acidic than it needs to be. So we're going to come back in a couple of hours and do this again. We want to keep this at a low simmer throughout the cooking process. You can cook this stock for anywhere from 3 to 24 hours. I typically let my stock go for 6 to 12 hours. Just kind of depends on the day and what I have going on the next day. I always, well, not always, but typically I will start a stock mid-morning on a Sunday or a Saturday. I'll let my stock go all day long, and when I go to bed at night, I'll turn it off and let it come to room temperature. So when I wake up the next morning, it's cool enough to handle. You never want to handle really hot stock, especially if you're making a bunch of it like I am right now, and you plan on storing it in 1-quart containers like I plan on doing a little bit later, especially if you're using plastic containers or even glass for that matter. It just makes it a little harder to handle, and hot plastic is not good for you. We'll talk about that whenever I see you tomorrow, whenever we're ready to strain our stock. Okay, so it's the next day. Our stock has come to a complete room temperature cool down. I turned the heat off about 10 o'clock last night and let it sit all by itself with the lid on. So here is our finished product. And the way you want to strain your stock is fairly straightforward. I have a large 1-gallon pitcher right here. You can also use another stock pot if you'd like, if that's what you have on hand. I have a sieve or colander. You can also use a colander to strain this. Now, if you want a more clarified stock or a less cloudy stock, you can line this with a paper towel or cheesecloth, but it's not necessary. Personally, I like all of the delicious little bits in there, so I'm gonna leave it just as is. I'm just gonna pour it right through. There, just gonna move this over here, tap it back in. We're gonna discard all of those solids later. And so now for storing, you have a couple of different options. You can use large glass mason jars. 1-quart containers are best because typically 4 cups, which happens to be what's in a quart, is what you would need for a recipe, or maybe 2 quarts. So I like to store them this way. I use these plastic containers. You can also use glass, but just make sure that you leave a little bit of space at the top to to make room for expansion during the freezing process. You're just gonna pour these into 1 quart containers. Again, make sure your stock is room temperature. You never want to pour warm anything in plastic or heat anything up in plastic. Plastic, especially when heated, releases something called xenoestrogens, or toxins that leach into our food. Not good eats and not good for you. We want to avoid those as much as possible. And so here I have some frozen 1 quart containers. If you're wondering how we easily melt our stock so we can use it in no time, I have that answer for you. What I like to do here is pull them out of the freezer. Even if I forget the night before and forget to put them in the refrigerator, I just pull them out whenever I'm ready to use them, and I drop them into room temperature water, maybe a deep saucepan or a large bowl. And once the sides melt, I just turn them out into a saucepan, turn the heat on medium-low, and let it melt. In no time, you have 4 cups of stock that you can use for any recipe that you wish. So that's it for today. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm Jessica Idleman. Please go to glow-nutrition.com where you can find more great recipes and ideas just like these for healthy, sustainable meal planning. I'll see you next time.